An approach that I want to tell you about for cinematography and how you're going to approach your shots is an approach that's actually goes back a little bit more to classic cinema. And when you're capturing the scenes, I want to encourage you to first capture that master shot, that wide shot that is going to capture most or all of the action for the scene. And there's a few reasons for that. First, you're going to want to do that because if you're running short on time and you don't have enough time to capture all the camera angles that you want, if you've only captured a few close-ups and something causes you to have to move on, then you may have not captured all of the information you need to capture to be able to illustrate and show that scene properly for the audience. So at the very least, you have your master covered so that if you need to tell that scene with just one shot or just a few shots, you have that. That's your safety net. After you capture that master, then at that point, you're going to go in and get your two pops or your two like medium to close-ups or over the shoulder type shots. So that's going to be of the 2 to 3 people that are in the scene that you've written that are delivering dialogue. You're going to capture their dialogue scenes where you're framing up their close-ups delivering the dialogue, or maybe the over-the-shoulder version of that when they're going to deliver their dialogue. So you got your master, and then you got those, so that between that, you can edit the scene together. You have all the action captured in the master, and you can go close when you need to on those specific actions or lines of dialogue. Then, after you've captured your master, after you've captured those two pops or over the shoulders, then if you have extra time, then I would encourage you to use your time to make sure that you have a cutaway shot, what's often called the cat in the window. It can either be a cutaway of somebody who's maybe secondarily part of the scene looking or listening or reacting. So you can use that to cover edits that you need to make, whether that's cutting out lines or covering just a mistake, or you in post, you feel like you need to cover a gap of time, or maybe continuity doesn't match up perfectly from how you did the shots, and you need a cutaway to go to kind of hide that and to hide so that the audience won't notice the gap in continuity. So look for that kind of cutaway shot. Again, it could be somebody's reaction or somebody's listening. It could be that you're showing a clock, or if there is an animal there or something interesting about the location, pick up that one cutaway shot, and that's going to help you in post to hide something that you don't want seen. When you're shooting, you're going to have to think about how long you can spend on each scene, and that's when it comes into play. You know, when we were talking about scheduling and pre-production, how much time you have for those setups, and how many setups are needed for a particular scene. But with each scene, you're also going to think about how many takes can I really allow myself on this? Yeah, at what point is good enough, and then you got to move on. At this schedule that you got to keep up, you're probably only going to have 2 or 3 takes, and that's about it. And if you don't have time ahead of time to do rehearsals with your actors, sometimes it's just not possible. They don't have the time available. Then you're going to kind of have to treat take 1 as a little bit of blocking and rehearsal and working out the kinks, and then you get 2 more takes that are sufficient. You know, take 2 is like, that's pretty good. Everybody hit their mark. The delivery's pretty good. We're going to do 1 more with some additional direction or as a safety. Okay, take 3. Now you're good. Now you're moving on. And that's probably the pace that you're going to have to keep up. So if you do have time ahead of time, if most of your actors are available, or maybe you even do some virtual calls for rehearsal, and you're utilizing something like Zoom or FaceTime, then you can do some rehearsing there as far as the deliveries go, so that then when you move into shooting, you're ready to jump right in. You do your 2 or 3 takes, and you're able to move on, and you're saving time, so that as you progress, maybe once you hit a really difficult scene, okay, now you've bought yourself time, and you can do several takes of that and really massage it, because on the other scenes that were less complicated, you were really disciplined and limited yourself to 2 to 3 takes. One of the other things that you're going to have to consider with production is, if you have the resources do you want to consider shooting with more than 1 camera? That's something that I've done. Sometimes it works to an advantage. sometimes it has its cons, and it doesn't work out as well as you would think. A lot of times shooting with 2 cameras can save you time. It's less setups to do or less takes to do. So you can go through those takes and get 2 different actions on camera at the same time, and it's a wonderful time saver. I'll tell you, with Smells Like Community Spirit, we shot with 2 cameras most of the time, and then also with Fenced Off, 2 cameras as well. But when we got into A Strange Brand of Happy or Fenced Off, the lighting that we had to do for those sometimes was a little bit more involved, and to light and to mic to capture audio adequately that we needed, and to have 2 cameras was a real challenge. And actually we were going to have to spend more time because it was hard to get the lighting right but hide the lights for both cameras, or to get the sound right and to hide the boom op or ops for both cameras. And so that's something that you're going to have to weigh out with your cinematographer and your sound mixer and with the rest of your crew. You're going to have to think through, can we leverage multiple cameras in this way? Are we going to have to stick to a single camera? Some of the things that you can consider also with, if you're going to shoot with multiple cameras, is with the lighting. Can you rely heavily on practicals and maybe one soft key light from one direction or from above, hanging some China balls off the ceiling or something like that, or bouncing light off the ceiling, and relying heavily on practicals? That might be the approach for you. With Smells Like Community Spirit, we were fortunate in that most of our scenes we could rely on the practical overhead lighting of the bowling alley, and then having one giant softbox key light for our talent, and having a stand on wheels with that key light. And we were able to roll it around very easily and quickly, and that gave us the look that we needed and helped us shoot with multiple cameras. But if you're trying to get more precise, unique lighting that's more specialized, and you have to involve tons of C-stands for flags and other lights and diffusion and things like that, then it's going to be harder to shoot with multiple cameras. When you're thinking about lighting, and the most accessible lighting of all is obviously the sun, you'll also want to think about, maybe you need to shoot your film in the summer, especially in the month of June. There are more daylight hours or minutes in the month of June than any other month of the year. So it's perfect for indie filmmaking, and that's how I did Smells Like Community Spirit. We shot in the middle of June, and we had lots of daylight hours to capture the scenes that we needed. And because I avoid writing scenes at night, then that meant that any time between roughly 6:30 a.m. and 8:30 p.m. during the day, we could shoot, and that gave us a lot of time with light to shoot what we needed. Then the other thing to consider, when you're shooting with multiple cameras or not, and you're leaning heavily into practical lighting, like I mentioned before, you can use those practical lights, but replace the bulbs with a little bit higher wattage bulbs. And on camera, it's going to look fairly natural, but it's actually going to give you more illumination than if you use your typical 40-watt bulbs or something like that with your lighting. And then when you're thinking about those takes that we talked about, limiting yourself to 3 takes, and you don't get a lot of time for rehearsal, besides doing virtual rehearsal like I talked about with Zoom or FaceTime or something like that, you can also consider, when load in is happening, when you have that 1 to 2 hours of setup time, you can ask your actors to come in during that time, and you can be doing some blocking and rehearsing at that point as well, so that you maximize your time, and everybody's doing something at any minute of the day. So there's some ways to consider that as well.